the father of one of those victims is shedding some light on what happened that night. Steve Goncalves says that there is evidence that his daughter Kaylee was trying to escape, but was trapped both by the attacker and another one of the victims.
Because the reality is if they cannot prove a motive, it's going to be very difficult to build the case and put Bryan Kohberger kind of the why he was at the scene and why he would do something like this.
This is Reporter Room with Jessica Davies.
Hello, Reporter Room investigators. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we're going to be talking about the Bryan Kohberger case. Oh my gosh, Ann Taylor is pushing her limits with Judge John Judge. My name is Jessica Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects, and show you how to do the same thing. If you haven't subscribed, please do. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Like, share, leave a comment. Let's get started together, shall we? Let's get started. My source on this is Newsweek, and Ann Taylor is trying to get her information on potential jurors in the Bryan Kohberger case. On Tuesday, Ann Taylor filed the motion basically pitching a fit about the ruling that she got from Judge John Judge, because Judge John Judge said you're not supposed to be contacting any potential jurors, neither the prosecution or defense team. Nobody should be contacting potential jurors. And when the prosecution heard that she was doing this, they brought it to the attention of the judge. So Judge John Judge put a kibosh on this already. So why is Ann Taylor trying to do an end run around the judge? And now when he told her she's not allowed to do this, he's already ruled she's not allowed to do this. Now she's filing motions trying to pretend like, oh, my poor client, everybody's against my client. He's the underdog. Again, trying to paint BK, the man who's been accused of breaking into innocent college students' houses while they were in their own beds, minding their own business and doing away with them. And yes, BK is innocent until proven guilty, but because he's the only one who's been indicted and who's sitting in jail, has yet to provide an alibi, I am going to be talking about this case in terms of BK. Judge John Judge filed a March 22nd order. He is prohibiting contact from both the prosecution and defense teams from reaching out to any potential members of the jury. So in a separate March 26th defense filing, Ann Taylor was arguing that BK's due process rights were being violated due to collusion between prosecutors and the courts. I'm sorry, this is bordering on ridiculous because they're being prohibited from contacting the jury. So here's what Ann Taylor said. She said in a new document that Mr. Kohberger's life and liberty are at stake. This is a capital case and he's entitled to be heard on motions pending before this court. Halting preparations for his motion for change of venue denies his constitutional right to a fair trial. The survey work is complete for Latah County, and it shows the jury pool in Latah County is biased. End quote. Of course, it shows that it's biased. You can word questions to get any result that you want in a poll. So Ann Taylor also appeared before the Idaho Senate Committee, and she was arguing that the state of Idaho was not in a position to financially shoulder an increase in the number of capital punishment eligible cases. So in a proposed law, which Ann Taylor was testifying against, House passed a bill that wanted certain SA crimes against kids under the age of 12 punishable by capital punishment. Ann Taylor testified that these are not quick to be resolved, and if it remains a DP case, a capital punishment case, I'm watching my words here, it can take years to get to trial and years to get to sentencing. And she said that the state of Idaho was not staffed or prepared for this, end quote. So the bill was voted down. In a very heated exchange on Wednesday, Dr. Brian Edelman, who supervised the survey of 400 potential jurors in Latah County, on behalf of Bryan Kohberger and his defense team, agreed that one of the questions asked if potential jurors had read or seen that BK had stalked one of the victims. And that, quote, Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false. You knew that to be false, end quote. This was asked by prosecutor Bill Thompson. So I did correct this already in my live stream, but I also wanted to correct it in a regular video as well. I don't know whether or not BK was following victims around town like was alleged by one of the major newspapers or not. Dr. Edelman is the co-founder of Trial Innovations, a jury consulting company. He said it would, quote, be ridiculous, end quote, to ask potential jurors about their knowledge of stalking reports in the media and then tell them the reports weren't true. Because he says he didn't care about what's being, quote, proliferated by the media. I just don't think this was helpful for Bryan Kohberger's defense. I don't know what to think because it feels like this really does hurt Bryan Kohberger. David Gelman, he's a New Jersey-based defense attorney and former prosecutor who's been following the case, said the survey in dispute is part of the defense efforts to prepare for a change of venue hearing. So is she trying to taint the jury to make sure that she gets a change of venue, or is this just honest dealings on her part? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So he's saying that in order to gather sufficient evidence to support the defense application, the defense retained an expert who sampled the potential juror pool to assess potential bias in Latah County. She hired a social psychologist named Bryan Edelman to conduct this polling, and in her filing, Ann Taylor conceded that many of Edelman's questions, not some, not a few, she conceded, quote, many of Edelman's questions about media influence are not factually correct. So that's a problem. It's a problem that she's reaching out to the potential jurors to begin with. It's a problem even more so that she's reaching out to them with questions that are trying to taint the jury. So Latah County prosecutor Bill Thompson, he took issue with Ann Taylor's questions, and he asked Judge John Judge to put a stop to this survey. Okay, so the judge agreed with prosecutor Bill Thompson, but Ann Taylor, she's not having it. She is demanding that the judge rescind the order because everything she can do to try to get her narrative out to prospective jurors, she's doing. She says, Ann Taylor claims that the defense is not disclosing information. The defense is asking prospective jurors in the county of Latah as to what information they're aware of that was previously disclosed vis-a-vis the press. Survey about simply gathering information about prospective jurors, or is the fact that she's putting out misinformation, disinformation to the jurors, is that her way of trying to taint the jury pool in order to force a venue change on the court? Is Ann Taylor being melodramatic about this whole thing, about BK's life and liberty being at stake, or does she have a valid point? Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments section below. We know that Judge John Judge barred both the prosecution and the defense teams from communicating with potential jurors, and I think this is an effort on his part not to taint the jury pool. Is Ann Taylor simply providing BK the most vigorous defense possible, or is she overstepping by doing this polling of prospective jurors? Because how you word a poll and what information you're sharing in that poll could cause a bias that wasn't there in the first place, and it could eliminate fair and open-minded jurors. I mean, after all, Moscow hasn't even tried to seat a jury yet. And what the prosecution wants is they just want a chance to seat the jury, or at least try to seat the jury. And then if that doesn't work, then do a change of venue. So Ann Taylor not only wants to delay, she wants to be able to reach out to prospective jurors with misinformation, with disinformation, in an effort to taint the jury pool, in my opinion. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. Subscribe and leave me a comment.